Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. I certainly did. Apparently, a lot of us were tuned into the NFL draft because according to the NFL this morning, 54 million people tuned into the NFL draft broadcast this year. That's up 12% from last year's ratings. So sports, good business to be in right now. TV, certainly a great business to be in right now. Let's talk about the NFL draft as a whole right now. I will get to the NBA playoffs and even college football later in the show, but this story right here is the one that matters the most. Will Levis dropping to the second round of the NFL draft after being touted as a top 10, probably closer to top 5 pick in this year's NFL draft. I don't think he could have ever expected this, and I understand this morning if Will Levis feels misled by fans, media, or maybe even his own agent. I get it. He looked distraught. He was not expecting this, and he really took it like a champ. And I don't mind that he decided to stay home on the second day of the NFL draft. He had every right to do that, and it's unfortunate because the clip resurfaced this weekend of him saying, I'd love to be there at the NFL draft, especially if I'm told, hey, you're going to be one of the top picks and you're going to go in the first round. But I don't want to be there if I fall and I end up being one of those guys that the camera's just on me the entire time. He literally said that, and I'm sure this happened for a lot of other people too. My heart dropped watching that clip. I felt so bad. I mean, he's not a troublemaker. He didn't deserve that. I felt really bad. But it goes back to the science of the draft and of the minds of those GMs who are making those picks, and it is what it is. But as I took it upon myself this weekend to watch Will Levis' film again, to look at his college stats again, to see what his body of work looks like now and what it may look like moving forward, I've come to the conclusion that may shock a lot of people, but I believe that in 2023, Will Levis is going to be the most accurate rookie quarterback in the NFL out of all the other guys he was drafted alongside. And I also think Will Levis is going to throw for the most yards in this first season when compared to his rookie counterparts. And that may shock people, or it may bother them because Ryan Tannehill is still on the roster and he wasn't traded. But bear with me here because I think I can make a compelling argument. Will Levis played for Kentucky, which is in the SEC, but it doesn't have nearly the same amount of talent that the other SEC teams have. As a result, Will Levis was going into each and every single weekend while at Kentucky, knowing while he plays SEC opponents, the other team has the better coach, the better offense, the better defense, the better facilities. They've got us beat in pretty much all the main categories. We still need to find a way to win here. We're not going to have better talent or better coaching or better anything. We just need to outwill them to this win. And there's something to be said about those kinds of guys because there's a history in the NFL of these quarterbacks who play at schools that don't have as great talent as other teams in their division or other teams in their conference have, but they still find a way to make it work. And then in the NFL, they perform great. And we saw it with Brock Purdy, for example, last year. These guys, I know Iowa's probably ranked lower in your rankings when compared to Kentucky, but it's a similar situation, right? You've got a quarterback who's been playing for years, who knew going into every single game he didn't have the better talent, who is used to throwing into tighter windows and throwing into tighter windows and not making as many mistakes, and that matters going into the NFL. In the NFL, these guys like C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young are going to, first of all, they're going to be used to throwing with 5 yards of separation and having guys wide open. That's not what the NFL is, and it's going to hit them like a truck. You see the difference in play when these guys who went to Alabama or who went to a Georgia seemingly start to do really poorly in this whole start of the NFL season, and it bothers them, and it's a little bit of psychological warfare, and it's a tough patch to get through in their careers. But Will Levis has played in those situations. Will Levis has played with less than formidable talent in college. He knows what it's like to have to throw into tighter windows and to have less of a margin of error going into Saturdays, and that'll carry over to Sunday because he already knows what it's like to play with very evenly matched talent, playing without wide receivers who can get 5 yards of separation on the corner. That's not going to happen in the NFL. C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young will struggle with that. Will Levis is not. Will Levis is used to guys not having as much separation as he'd like, not having a guaranteed completion. he's going to be able to work through those progressions better than his counterparts, and he's going to feel more free to let it rip in situations where the other guys are going to feel really uncomfortable and really not confident in themselves when throwing those long balls or throwing into those very tight covered situations. Will Levis is used to that, and he's going to find a way to make it work, and he's going to be better in that first season when compared to the other guys. And because of that, like I said, Will Levis, I think he's going to have the most yards of any rookie quarterback in his class, and I also think he's going to be more accurate than all of them. Those tight windows, I can't emphasize it enough. It matters, and we've seen that with quarterbacks in the past. Also, the reason I say the most yards is because I think the Tennessee Titans are going to be throwing a lot this year. Even if Derrick Henry is on the roster and he's a great security blanket for Will Levis if he's ever in doubt and he can just hand it off to him. The Tennessee Titans were dead last in pass defense last year. They allowed the most yards of any defense in the air last year. That means they're going to be throwing a lot this year. They're going to be playing without a lead. They're going to have to come back. The other team is already going to have a nice, healthy lead on them. They're going to have to work their way back from a deficit. And because of that, you're not going to run the ball as often as you'd like. You're going to be throwing a lot. And that's going to give Will Levis the opportunity to air the ball out. And I still think that even if he's constantly slinging it, I think he'll still be an accurate quarterback because he was accurate in college. He throws into tight windows. He used to not having amazing talent on the perimeter at those skill positions or wide receivers. He'll be just fine. And actually, he'll be playing with better talent in the NFL and better wide receivers and better caliber wide receivers than he did at Kentucky. C.J. Stroud was playing with literal NFL wide receivers. Now he'll still be playing with NFL wide receivers, but the other teams have NFL-level corners. That wasn't always the case when he was at Ohio State. This is where going to a smaller school works out for some of these quarterbacks, and that's why I think Will Levis will have the best early success when compared to his other rookie quarterback counterparts. It wasn't too long ago that people were begging to never see this matchup again. People were just tired of it, and now it's funny how times have changed. We're all begging to see this matchup just one more time in the NBA postseason. LeBron James versus Stephen Curry. The Warriors versus the Lakers. And I know that second part might not sound as appealing, but it's still got the same core nucleus of guys that we all love, appreciate, and want to see in this matchup. Draymond Green is still there on the Warriors. Klay Thompson still playing. Steph Curry still playing. And, of course, the most important player in this rivalry, LeBron James, is still alive and well and playing his best basketball in quite some time. And so is Stephen Curry. That's what makes this matchup so great. And you really couldn't have written this any better. Stephen Curry is coming off one of the best performances of his postseason career. 50 points in a postseason game, that's unheard of. And it just furthers the legend of Stephen Curry and his ability to score when no one else can and to really make the three-point line his own. I mean, he's forever changed basketball. The way that we now utilize the three-point line in AAU, in high school, in college, and in the NBA, it's because of Stephen Curry. He changed the way the game is played and the way that coaches use the strategy at the three-point line and the way they try and put points on the board. He has changed the offensive dynamic of the NBA forever. And that credit goes to him. Because of that reason, to me, Steph Curry beat Magic Johnson a long time ago for the greatest point guard of all time title. I'm not one of these people that thinks Stephen Curry needs at least one more title to surpass him. He already did. In terms of greatness and impact and everything he did for the game, Steph Curry has literally changed the game. I'm well aware that Magic Johnson is a living legend. I know that he saved the NBA when the games were on tape delay and he changed that whole thing. That he deserves his credit there. But the way the literal game is played, that credit goes to Stephen Curry, and that to me is a much greater impact on the game of basketball than Magic Johnson making it a more TV-friendly game. We certainly appreciate him for it. A whole division of a sports economy and television ratings boomed and was created because of him. But when measuring impact, I've already said it. Steph Curry, to me, takes the cake in that regard. So Stephen Curry is now going to be facing off against LeBron James in the second round of the NBA playoffs in the West. After it's incredible how this played out. I mean, Everyone thought all year long, Lakers don't have it in the postseason. They're not going to have it. I even talked about that on this show. I was clearly wrong. I mean, I did not think this team was capable of being this lethal and coming together in the postseason because I thought injuries would certainly get in their way. It hasn't. And so whether it's luck on their side or just having enough scar tissue to push through, I don't know what it is. But the Lakers are playing their best basketball they have in the last 18 months right now. And it looks like they're unstoppable, especially when they get a little bit of fire in them when other guys start calling them out. I think the Warriors are smart enough to know we can't give them any bulletin board material. Let's just be hands off when it comes to press conferences. Let's not poke the bear. And so, to me, this series is important not because of the nostalgia of it all, but because this series literally could change how we view basketball. LeBron James and Stephen Curry both have 4 titles each. Both of those guys are in search of their 5th. They're seeking to get that 5th championship. And this matters because they're facing off against each other. They've played each other 43 times across their career. Steph Curry has a winning record of 25-18, 15 wins compared to LeBron's 7 wins in the postseason. That matters. Steph Curry is winning the wins bout of this, but LeBron is probably winning the performances. LeBron has way more points in these series, way more assists. He beats Steph Curry in that regard, but the individual talent and the points on the floor versus the actual winning percentage, it makes for a great matchup. But you also look at these guys and you look at what they've done for the game and what they've done for themselves and their legacy. The 4 titles each, both in search of their 5th. This series, depending on the winner, could very well change for many people how we look at the GOAT debate. And I know I brought up the GOAT debate a couple weeks ago on this show because of the Air Jordan movie that I went to go see. But there is a portion of people who, even though size matters in the legacy debate and centers and bigs usually take the top of that board, not necessarily point guards or guards, Steph Curry could be that transcendent talent, as he always has been, into that GOAT debate. Because this era could very well be remembered as Stephen Curry's era if he beats LeBron James in the series and if he goes on to win his 5th NBA championship and go back-to-back at the age of 35 years old. There will be a portion of people who remember this as Stephen Curry's era, not LeBron's, and that matters. And you don't think LeBron James knows that in the back of his mind? He just got out of an emotionally draining series with the Memphis Grizzlies. That team took so much out of him and forced LeBron to play with more effort than he has in a long time. He usually doesn't expend 100% of his energy. He was going all in every single game with the Memphis Grizzlies. Is he going to be exhausted? Is the team going to be? Did it take a toll on them emotionally, mentally, physically? Whatever the case may be, both Steph Curry and LeBron James, they know what's on the line. And I think Steph Curry knows, if I beat this guy and I go on to win my 5th championship, the world is going to look at this debate differently. It is a legacy-altering series. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. So while we will enjoy the nostalgia of it all and the potential this is the last time that we see these 2 juggernauts face off against each other head-to-head in the postseason, also keep in mind they're playing for legacy. This is for all the cards. If either of these guys wins the series and goes on to win the NBA championship, it will forever change or solidify how we look at basketball from the year 2000 on. Was it LeBron James' era or was it Stephen Curry's? It could very well end up becoming Steph's if LeBron somehow or the Lakers team slips up here and loses their footing and yet again takes another devastating playoff loss to Stephen Curry. We will see. I am very excited. This is going to be a series for the ages. So an interesting story came to light just as I was getting ready for the show this morning, and I knew we had to talk about it. The Detroit Lions are trending towards giving quarterback Jared Goff a new contract sometime in the next 15 months, per David Burkett. That was the journalist who released the story. And so it looks like the 3-time Pro Bowler is now going to be linked to Detroit, and they see him as their future. And a lot of people are criticizing this report this morning, saying, why would you want to stick with Jared Goff? You know, what's there to like? And to me, it's all situational. I do want to start by saying, we always talk on this show, I want to inform the fans or viewers, why does information get out there? It doesn't happen through osmosis like most people think it does. Someone wants this information out there, therefore it is getting out there. If I had to guess, the Lions are floating this out there because and they're not looking to gain or lose any leverage, but they do want to get feedback from their own fan base, and they want to see what the rest of the NFL has to say about it. Now, going to the actual transaction, situations matter. Jared Goff is one of the better quarterbacks in an NFC conference that doesn't have a lot of great talent. It's Jalen Hurts and then everybody else, right? That's what we kind of have come to the consensus of. He's at the top, Hurts, and Jared Goff is somewhere in the upper half of that conference. He's pretty good, and you may not like that, but I've shown the stats on this show. I showed how he beat out in certain periods of time. He beat out guys like Josh Allen, who we think are elite quarterbacks, and Jared Goff has proven to be formidable and exactly what the Detroit Lions need. The Lions have a great head coach in Dan Campbell, offensive-minded guy who's brought a culture of passion and love and toughness to Detroit, or has at least reinstilled it in the Lions fans. The locker room loves him. They've got a great offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, who is really creative, who was absolutely cooking last year during the tail end of the season. Jared Goff was on a roll. That entire offense looked amazing. They've got great skill positions. They've got some speedy guys, some very agile guys, an offense that's really built for football in 2023. They play in a dome, which means Jared Goff, it works out for him. He played college football in California. We know he's a California kid in the style that he plays. He throws a pretty ball. He doesn't do great in the elements, but it's not a worry for them because they do play in a dome for half of their games, meaning Jared Goff's not worried about the elements. He's not worried about rain, hail, snow, or sleet. He's good. He knows he just has to worry about the play, the next play, the football. He's got it under control. He's not worried about any of these external factors, and that matters. And for the situation the Detroit Lions are in, I don't mind this being reported, and I think they should sign Jared Goff. The one thing here that I do think is interesting, the next 15 months, they want to see another season out of Jared Goff, and not because they're going to be paying close attention to his performance, I think. Of course, he can't tank, but I don't think they're worried about him necessarily. I think they're worried about the division. I think the Lions are looking and they say, can Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings finally get over the hump with yet another superstar wide receiver added to the roster? Can Jordan Love be a superstar for the Packers? Like, they want to see over the next season how the division shakes out. Can they win this thing for years to come? Is it a lock? Is there going to be a lot of competition? Is there another team or quarterback that's head and shoulders above their own? Once they figure that out this season, they'll know whether they can feel comfortable with proceeding with Jared Goff. But I do think that he works out well for this situation, and I do think that they will end up re-signing him if I had to guess today. So another story pertaining to football hit the news cycle this morning, and I knew we were going to have to talk about it because it really does matter to me. The SEC is considering new penalties for storming the field. The penalties, according to SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, would include forfeiting games and even loss of future home games. I understand why storming the field is not allowed in the NFL. It's a business. It's an entertainment product. You don't want any funny business going on. There's too many factors at play, especially the security implications at that level. It's professional sports. But in college football, I just think it's a part of the culture. Fans storming the field is a part of college football's culture. It's a part of the excitement, the passion, the unmatched happiness when your team upsets a team that they were not supposed to beat, that they were not supposed to even share the field with. That is such a magical moment to watch on TV or to see if you're there in person. It's a part of the culture and the very fabric of college football. If you remove that and you take away fans' abilities to rush the field or you penalize them for it, at that point, as college football, you're saying, we don't care about culture. We don't care about what fans love or hate. We're here to create a business. And that works for the NFL. It's the best product. It's not going to work for college football. It's very disappointing that they would even go to these lengths. They had their highest rated season of college football this past year in all of the divisions and all of the conferences, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the SEC. It feels like college football is finally back because of the introduction of the 12-team playoff coming in just a couple years. There's more parity. There's more excitement. NIL has thrown a wrench into the conventional plans of college football coaches. It's a lot of fun to watch as a fan. I will take that side of the argument. But saying that you don't want fans to storm the field is taking away from the culture and the excitement and the passion that college football fans have. when you watch your team upset a team that they shouldn't even be in the same sentence as, that everyone has been writing you off all week probably on the major shows and on game day, it is so exciting to watch that happen. And if you're a fan of one of those teams, I think you should be able to storm the field. It's tradition, it's culture, it matters, and it should stay. And with that, we conclude this week's episode of the Benjamin Cure Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your week to listen to this show. There's so many choices out there for sports talk. It is not lost on me how awesome it is that you guys choose this show and my perspectives as the one that you want to listen into on a weekly basis. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Next week, we'll be back with so many other great stories. A quick note here before we go. South Florida sports have been on an absolute heater. The 8-seed Panthers upset the NHL's top team. The 8-seed Miami Heat upset the Bucks, which was the NBA's top team. The 9-seed FAU men's team just a couple weeks ago made it to their first ever Final Four. So did the 5th-seed Miami Hurricanes basketball team. So did the 9-seed Miami women's team. They made it all the way to their first Elite 8. Just awesome time to be a Miami sports fan. Hopefully the Marlins can be included in that statement a couple weeks from now or a couple of years from now. We'll see how that turns out. But until next week, I'm Benjamin Cure. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.